All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna finish up the casting process of our mold, all right? And remember, those words are they work together, casting and mold. In this instance, we're finishing the mold by pouring plaster into this box that we've created. Remember, please, it is so important that you have finished this process completely, that you have really gone through with clay and double checked to make sure that all of your seams are really sealed up. If you don't, then you're going to have a blowout and all of the plaster is going to go all over the floor. I kind of laugh, but it's really not funny because the end result of that is that you would have to start back at square one with a paper ball and start this process all over again, and that's no fun for anybody. Okay, so I have all the things that I need to finish up a finished and sealed box with my solid cup form in the inside. I have a bucket with water in it. If you're not sure how much plaster and water to get, please just come and talk to me because I'm happy to show you how much you need based upon your particular situation. There's not a standard answer I can give you. It's just kind of experience, unless you want to do a lot of heavy math, which I don't think I want to do, and I don't know if you want to do. So I have about what I think is the right amount of water in this bucket here. And actually, now that I say that, I'm going to add a little bit more. All right, and I made that adjustment before I started pouring in plaster because, well, you kind of have to do the plaster all in one shot. So I'm going to move this little bowl aside here, and I'm going to use big handfuls of the plaster, so 2 hands, and I'm going to spread this over my water. I'm not going to move the water until I'm done with this. So I'm just going to quickly but evenly spread the plaster around. Notice that I'm not dumping the plaster in a big lump because that will create a dry spot, and that's not any good. And it looks like I'm adding a lot because I am adding a lot. Now remember, as you're doing this, I said quickly, and the reason why quick is important is because it starts to set up in about 15 minutes. And so while that sounds like a long time, for some people, they might use up all of that time and then run into the problem of their plaster starting to set. Now, if you can see that in the camera, it's starting to kind of sit on the surface a little bit before it sinks. That means that we're getting close. And what I want are a series of islands that do not sink. That's how I know I have enough. I've still not touched the water. I've not moved the bucket. I'm just going to let that soak in. And so if you look right here really closely, maybe if you zoom in, you can see that this part right here is still slowly sinking. So that means I'm actually going to add a little bit more because I want to see some of that plaster sitting up on top of the water, but full and soaked. So now we just got to wait a second. All right. And so I can see that all around here, this is soaked in right there. This is pretty much soaked in. So I'm going to go ahead and mix it up. I'm going to use one hand. I'm going to keep the other hand clean. And I'm using motions kind of like this inside of the plaster to get all of those chunks incorporated. Okay, so I've gotten all the chunks worked out of that plaster. Now I'm going to take this hand and use it like a squeegee on the side of my bowl to get off most of the plaster, and that's just going to keep my workspace clean, and that means less cleanup for you later. All right, now I'm going to take my bucket, hold it by the handle, and tip it from the back. It is totally okay if you need to have another person help you hold on to the bucket if it's heavy. but only one person should really be in control of pouring. And if you look in there, I'm going to try to rotate it around so you can see it in the camera. I'm trying to pour onto the object because I want to get a good coating on that object. But nice and even, not too fast. And now we see if I mixed enough. I think I'm a little bit short. So I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more out of the bucket by scraping the insides with my hand. And ideally, you're going to have a couple of fingers or a knuckle of depth. All right, so you should be up to one of the knuckles above the highest point of your cup. So that has to sit there. So probably if you're doing this during class, you'll just leave that there and I will come by later and clean it up, and then you'll come back to a hardened set mold. For now, all right, you just leave that. The bucket needs to be cleaned up immediately. Remember, none of this wet plaster goes into the sink. Instead, scrape it out with a dry napkin into the trash can and then throw that away into the trash can. The bucket, once it's been wiped out really well, does need to be rinsed, but only after you've gotten all the wet plaster. The reason is because that wet plaster will sit in the plumbing and it will ruin the plumbing in the building, which is no fun for anybody. The table needs to get wiped down, the floor needs to get wiped down, everything needs to be put back the way it was, and then you're ready, hopefully, to clean out the mold and do some casting.